Fear is the most effective tool that anyone who has any desire to control you has at their grasp. I mean, fear is more powerful than any other force on the planet. I mean, we've seen for years advertisers have gotten really good, or had. I don't even think they try it now. That sex was always the way to get your attention. Scantily clad female, man with his shirt off. Um, to try to get that emotional charge from you to get your attention. Um, but it's my opinion that over the last, probably 30 years, or yeah, probably 25 to 30 years, it's fear. Because fear causes a physiological reaction in your body. That tightness in your stomach. It it causes you to think irrationally. Um, it tries to touch that fight or flight reflex that you have. You know, as long as I've been driving, 20, coming up on 24 years, there have been times where I've had a near miss. You know, something will happen, a slick road, but once you're through it, you know, everything slows down in the instant. When you're faced with that ultimate adrenaline rush, everything slows down, and you get through it. And then once you're on the other side of it and you realize that you're safe, well, then you just go to jelly, or at least I do. You know, like just your arms and legs, just because that you're not used to that kind of adrenaline. Not like an athlete or a race car driver or something like that. They have that prolonged for hours, and they know how they've learned how to operate in that heightened awareness. Being living right on the edge, especially race car drivers, probably more so than anybody else, because they're 130 beats per minute for 4 hours. Just living on the edge. But I'm looking around me now, and I'm watching people make decisions based on fear, not logic, not critical thinking. They're not saying, of course, they've not ever been allowed to, either through, their government education in schools or their religious instruction in churches. You're never allowed to ask questions. Don't just shut up. Listen, we have all the answers. We have all the information. Don't worry about it. Just do what we're told, and everything will be fine. So I had a conversation a few minutes ago with a friend, and a couple of points came up I wanted to address. One was about um, the social contract and the fabric of society, and from a faith perspective, it's about caring for your neighbor. What's the big deal about a mask? What's the harm in putting on a mask if it protects your neighbor? We're in a pandemic, and so I immediately in my mind I have that scene from one of the Avengers movies where Thor is sitting there with Bruce Banner, and he's like, "Yeah, but are we really?" Um, the fact that if I question the validity of what I am being told by these people, and if anyone who also has some credentials, they could be a doctor, they could be an immunologist, a virologist, they could be any kind of person with some kind of credential, um, and they question it, there's not a discussion that takes place of, well, I mean, you believe A and I believe B, so let's sit down and have a conversation about it. No, that's not what happens. What happens is that person gets canceled, censored, blocked, So you're telling me that two virologists, two immunologists, two doctors that have differing opinions, both have lots of credentials, both have been to school and have written papers, and we're not having to discuss, we don't have journalists going and saying, well, Dr. A, you say this about viruses and precautionary measures, and Dr. B, you say this about viruses and precautionary measures, and then present the information to me and say, well, okay, A or B. I mean, here's we the journalists have gone out and found the information being offered by these two different people. So we're going to present you that information, and you can make a choice. Is that what they do? No, that's not what they do. They say the nation's leading expert on says A, and a debunked conspiracy theorist says B. Y'all, that's not journalism. Period. That's fear-mongering. That's propagandizing. But it's not news. It's not journalism. It's not information. So you have to answer that question first, because if I'm supposed to modify my behavior based on a presentation of fact, well, we're going to have some sort of agreement on whether that danger is real or not. So then the question comes up of mixing faith and politics. And this is my personal opinion. Politics is when you say Trump is better than Biden or Biden is better than Trump. That's politics. But from my perspective, when there is an organization that exists, like the state, U.S. government, U.K. government, governments around the world, state government, county government, these organizations exist, okay? Well, if I comment on that organization and its existence and its behavior, that's not politics, that's a commentary. I have a commentary on people who have jobs and titles and authorities and responsibilities. So if I say, let's go back to the social contract for a second. I hate that term, by the way. Well, what is the social contract in the United States? It's the Constitution, right? So you have a series of documents that created an organization on the federal level. All right, you have a series of documents that have created an organization on the state level and the county level. But if I say, okay, well, here are the documents that created this organization, and it's my opinion that the organization should adhere to the principles and policies outlined in that documentation. Well, how dare you? Okay, so let's not use that organization example. Let's use the organization that I work with. Okay, there's a carrier, a trucking carrier. We signed a contract, and it says we're going to provide a truck, and you're going to provide insurance, and you're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and you're going to handle the billing, and you're going to give us this percent, and you're going to, and all this stuff is outlined in the contract. Well, what do you think would have happened if back in March they said, hey, there's an emergency, so we're going to take this contract and set it over here, and, because safety, we're only going to pay you X now. No. We'll just take the letters off the side of the truck and say, no, thank you. We will go somewhere else. You're either going to follow the law or you're not. We either, A, live in a constitutional republic that has equal but separate branches and separation of powers, or we don't. You can't have it both ways. So if I say, well, wait a minute, I believe this person that has this title should honor the oath that they took, and they should honor the principles outlined in the documents that created the position that they're in. And if they don't do that, they should probably be fired. And if they do it with malice, they might ought to be thrown in jail. But it's an emergency. I'm sorry, that's debatable. Go spend no less than 10 minutes and no more than 20. No less than 10 minutes, no more than 20. And just go look into PCR tests. Who invented PCR, polymerase chain reaction, and how does it work? I dare you. I triple dog dare you. Now, what's sad about that is there's someone watching this right now that doesn't want to do, they won't admit this, they don't want to do that because they're afraid of what they're going to find. Because it is so easy to just say, well, you know what, I mean, I'm not very smart, I haven't been to college, I don't have any degrees. But these people, I mean, that's their job, is to be smart and tell us what's going on and provide us with the information that we need. That's their job. Maybe. Also debatable. "10 years now, since 2010. Back in 2010, I had an epiphany of sorts where I said, well, context. It was the financial crisis. So it kind of started in 08 through 09 into 2010. And I remember thinking, I don't ever want to be in this position again. To not know, because I had to walk into my boss's office and I said, hey, are we okay? And he's like, yeah. See, because there were trucking companies dropping like flies, old trucking companies that had been around for a very long time. And they were closing their doors, and they weren't telling the employees. They weren't like, hey, y'all, we're in financial trouble, so, you know, y'all should go look for something. No, they just, all of a sudden, their fuel cards wouldn't work, and their paychecks started bouncing. And I thought, okay, well, I'm so broke that if this place I'm working for goes belly up, I'm screwed. So I walked into the boss's office. I said, are we okay? He said, yeah, we're fine. Why do you ask? And I'm like, well, this one went out, and that one went out, and that one went out. And he said, well, you know, remember when all the rates were up really high and we were making great money? I said, yeah. He said, we've been saving money. And, you know, he's like, I could pay you guys to pull empty trailers for 6 months. And I'm like, oh, okay. That company still exists today, 10 years later. It's still growing. It's still profitable. And I thought, well, maybe I need to be that guy. And so I made a series of decisions. And on New Year's Eve, 2010, I got on a bus and rode it for 26 hours to St. Cloud, Minnesota, on a wing and a prayer, and embarked on this journey that I am still on. And anybody that knows my story knows that there has been ups and downs. There's been moments of success, and there have been moments of abject failure. But here I am, 10 years later. You can't put me in a plexiglass cage. You can't make me wear a mask. Not every minute of every day. I can certainly go into some places and they say wear a mask or leave. I have yet in 20, I need to do my count again, but I think it's going to be 23 states tomorrow when I get into Connecticut. In 23 states and almost 9 months, I have not been removed from a building for not wearing a mask. It's probably happened maybe, well, less than 10. I'll just go with less than 10 times in 23 states where I have walked into public places, Walmarts, restaurants, truck stops, that someone has said, "Do you have a mask?" And I say, "No." And they just look at me because they don't know what to say next. I wish I had another 18 months before this happened, because then I'd really be shored up, and pretty much be able to work from home and make a fantastic income. And I wouldn't have to deal with this garbage out here. But I've already built enough foundation at this point that's not going to matter. So there's a bunch of people right now that are saying, I don't want to ever be in this position again. Well, it starts with self-education. It starts with turning off the television and picking up a book. I have read somewhere, including fiction, I've read somewhere around 400 books in the last 8 years. Quite a few of them I've read more than once. And the fiction books they do have value, just because they introduce certain principles and scenarios into your mind that allows you to think about it, because it's been dramatized, and you can kind of put yourself in that position of that character and think, well, what would I do in that situation? So even the fiction books are valuable. But history, philosophy, man, I wouldn't trade that for anything. Because now today I can sit here and say with confidence, someone will say, oh, well, back when X happened, and I can go, at least in my mind, yeah, but that's not true. And I can say it's not true because it can be so easily verified. You don't have to do backflips and, get access to secret vaults, and most of it can be verified with a very simple Google search, and be verified by what you would consider legitimate sources. Because the history books are all out there, but the version of history that we were given in our government education doesn't anywhere even closely resemble. So you have to make yourself so valuable in the marketplace that you can't just be replaced by another robot that looks and acts just like you. I'm telling my kids right now, I'm like, y'all, my kids have an unbelievable amount of freedom with their time. But I constantly tell them, you need to, as an act of your will, decide to spend some of your time on self-education that that at least offers you to takes your God-given talents, the thing you were born with, like Kaylee, my daughter, is a gifted artist. You know, she can draw, and she's very artsy, and she's very in tune with color and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not, like, at all. And I'm like, you know, you need to give the graphic design a shot. What if she got good at it? And what if we got her listed on Upwork or Fiverr or one of these websites, and she started doing graphic design for people? Are they going to know or care that she's 14? Nope. What if she started making $30,000 a year at 14? 50? What if she made 100? What kind of platform of freedom and individualism would a 16-year-old with $50,000 in the bank have? Obviously, we're going to teach her to make sure that she doesn't turn into Kim Kardashian and she saves the money. You have a gift of some sort. All you need to do is to take that gift and combine it with some skill, and then go use it to serve people. Provide whatever it is they need. And you can do something that you enjoy doing that's not work. You know what I mean? It's probably work, but it's not, you don't hate it. You enjoy doing it, so it doesn't feel like work. And make double or triple or 4 times your income doing what you like to do, doing what you're good at, and doing it in the service of others. And then you're no longer a slave. See, Jesus always comes up in this, you know, because especially if you're trying to take a, you know, well, I mean, we're in the kingdom, and you know, we should have a different perspective, and I do. But Jesus spoke truth to power, and Jesus did not his greatest enemy was not the state. It was religious people. And who are the most religious people we face today? As I pass a billboard that says, "God bless President Trump," who are the devout and faithful in America? Who are the high priests and kings in America? It ain't pastors. It's politicians. The religion is called statism, and people worship it. It is their God. And that God, just like the God of the Old Covenant, that God can kill and burn and steal and destroy. And you will say, "Oh, but it's the holy God." It's omnipotent and omnipresent. No, it's not. So I wanted to try this different than doing a live, because I think the quality is going to be better. So I'm going to upload this and see what happens.